haven't planned much for this video. I'm just gonna go live. I'm gonna do it live. Last time I talked about what if Lucy Letby was on shift for all of these collapses and deaths, and it was just a chance. Well, I'm actually going to expand on this. Well, firstly, we know this chart is nonsense because I'm just going to cover it briefly, but it's been debunked a few times before, where the event, what they call a suspicious event, what they chose as a suspicious event was an event where Letby was on shift. So, surprise, surprise, Lucy Letby is always going to be on shift if one of the criteria for choosing a suspicious event is if Lucy is on shift. So that's one problem. Another problem with the chart. This is just going off the top of my head. I can't remember. It must have been a long time before I've seen Richard Gill's statistical analysis. But just going off the top of my head, the other issue was Lucy was. They're putting an X by Lucy and giving her basically the same standard as any other nurse when she would have done a lot more shifts. Like some of the other nurses were just temps or whatever, and yet they're putting a mark next. A mark next to a temp being on shift is the same as a mark as Lucy being on shift. When really, if say a temporary member of staff came in once, just for fun. If she just popped in for 5 minutes once a month and then there was a baby death, that would obviously statistically be a lot more significant than Lucy being on shift, on duty, when she's working 60 plus hours a week, because obviously the odds are anyway she's going to be on shift a lot. The other thing I can think of that's wrong with this chart is there's only nurses on here, so they're saying that only nurses can commit murders and not any other hospital staff. Freudian slip there. And another thing is this was a chart of who's on duty, so she wouldn't necessarily have been looking after that baby. She wouldn't necessarily have even been in the same room as this other, as the baby with a collapse or death. So yeah, we know this chart's fairly bogus. But the last video I was saying, what if she actually was on shift for a lot of deaths or quote unquote collapses, which encompasses a lot of things. Well, one, it could be chance, and going back to the phrase, when you hear hooves, you think horses before you think unicorns. I think there's a zebra somewhere in between there, so let's look at the zebra as well. I'm going to reference the good Dr. House here. Now there's an episode called Maternity.
It's our first kid. We're both a little panicky, I guess.
Well, you gotta ask the
Basically,
pediatrician. Bit up too.
A fairly similar thing happens in House.
Is she alright?
Where there's a lot of collapses in the maternity ward.
I'm still amazed you're actually in the same room with the patient. The truth to impart.
Means that
They can't find what's going on. They're not sure if it's a bacterial infection or if it's a viral infection. And House does his normal House wild, crazy stuff, probably treating different babies with different things. And this is a fictional program, obviously, not a documentary, and it's quite wild and outlandish, some of the episodes. In fact, at one point, House drove his car through the hospital administrator's wall of her house whilst they were having dinner in the other room. But even on this wild fictional program, they didn't leap to unicorns. They went to zebras, as they would call it in the US. They couldn't find the cause of the infection, but at no point in the episode did they suspect someone was coming in and murdering. One of the nurses was murdering one of these babies, and it turned out it was some member of staff was passing around kiddies' toys or something, and that had the issue. And so when I'm saying, how about look at zebras, there's could it be possible even, I mean, that Lucy was on shift, and there was a reason that she was on shift for the collapses. It could have been that she was like a typhoid Mary, where she had some sort of disease, obviously not typhoid or something, or she was a carrier, a natural carrier of some kind of infection that was causing these babies to collapse. Here comes the science bit. Concentrate. Maybe it was the shampoo she used, or her perfume, or just some other explainable reason, environmental factor that could have caused collapses when she went on shift. I mean, did they test her blood to check if she's some sort of carrier of some sort of disease? So basically, typhoid Mary. She had typhoid, and she was passing it on to people that she was cooking for or looking after, but she herself never actually displayed any symptoms or got sick. I think back in the early days of COVID, they were trying to hunt down this one guy who was apparently a carrier, a super spreader, if I remember, and he was apparently spreading COVID everywhere with that, and he obviously didn't have any symptoms himself. I assume it was a him. So this has got me questioning the fact that the police didn't even look at this as an explanation. As far as I know, I mean, maybe they did do a blood test on Lucy and check for all this, but I suspect they didn't. But if they leaped straight from A to C and ignored B, I mean that tells you that they are looking for a scapegoat or something, or it might actually just be a case of because the police are involved, you know, their motive, the police's motive isn't to find a logical explanation for something. Their motive, that's what they're paid to do, is find a criminal. Again, even though they may not deliberately be biased that way, they would just generally lean. You know, I'm not saying they had these meetings in a smoky room and one of them stroking an evil cat, But this is what happens when it's the police's job and they're incentivized to find criminals. So I'm sure detectives are merited on the basis of how many convictions they get and things like that. So basically, the police's motive is hammer every. If you're a hammer, every solution is a nail or something like that. Basically, the police don't look for an alternative, a possible alternative explanation. Because I've actually had that myself when I was falsely accused of something, and the police's automatic response. I don't know whether maybe it should that police automatically think the worst and they go for the most suspicious option, whereas the more obvious innocent option they ignored. So in my personal experience, I know that is how they work. So in a way, it's sort of unfortunate that they actually got the police involved at all, because they're not. I just don't think they were the right people to look at it. I mean, if you want an investigation or something, they're not going to be non-biased or mutual. They are going to look towards a crime. And just another thing I want to talk about generally, the way everything's been going. Back about a year ago, nobody was talking about. If you went on Facebook or YouTube or any sort of social media and expressed your doubt about the conviction, you would get. You could even get a strike. It was so. The idea was so offensive to people that it was almost criminal. I remember, I think Mark Mays, got a notification once about some of his YouTube videos expressing doubt about the verdict, being harmful content or something. But now, things are going in the right direction. The message is getting out there, and I'm sort of ready to just sit back and watch it all unravel. Get the popcorn ready. Okay, I think that's about it. Thank you.